Good morning. Welcome to Church at Home with Rachael on Tuesday, the 18th of January. This is my second take this morning because as I was starting my first take, I had a phone call. And it was one of those survey things they want to do about politics and where people stand in the country. And it got me thinking that as annoying as some of those things are, sometimes it's important to stop and take the pulse of something. What is happening in the world, what is happening in our country, our community, what's happening in our homes. And so I think in the middle of that, in the answer of like you can hang up or you can take this survey, I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to take the survey. Not necessarily so much that my voice can be heard, although that's always nice to know that you've contributed to something, but more so that I can have a moment to think about the questions that other people are thinking about. Giving my response to questions about, how do I feel about the prime minister or where the country is going or, our relationship to the U.S. or things like that. Yeah, okay, yeah, my opinion is what my opinion is. But it's interesting to hear the questions that are being asked. What is it about our world that these are the questions that are being asked? And it got me thinking, if we were to create like a Christian survey right now for people to fill out or to answer a phone questionnaire, what kind of questions would we ask? What kind of questions would we want to know the answers to? Or what kind of questions would we maybe not want to know the answers to, but maybe we should ask anyway? I got thinking about Sunday and the sermon. I used the wedding in Cana and the empty water jars being filled with water that was turned to wine, and the sense that the church is changing, that our water jars seem to be pretty much empty and they're cumbersome and they're not movable. And I'm talking about the churches themselves, not just water jars. Those 20 to 30 gallon water jars that Jesus had the water had filled with water and then changed that water to wine. It seems like the people aren't coming to those water jars anymore, are they? Really? There's lots of us who still go on Sundays, and I'm glad of that. Not just because I'm a priest and so my job is, but because I'm a priest and it's what my vocation is. I feel called to go to church, even when I'm not the priest. I feel called to worship with other people in community, even if I don't like them all the time or they don't like me. There's something about coming together as a group. But one of the things that I've been given the gift of moving around the country and is recognizing that church is church, but church is not church, is not church, is not church. Our buildings are different, and the way that we worship within those buildings is different. And yet, every congregation seems to think that their way of worship is the way of worship. And I think we're coming to that place where we need to ask the questions. We need to have that survey that says to the world, if you're Christian and you are worshiping in a church, what is it about this church that you love, that you would never want to have change about it? And what are those things about church that, you could handle if it changed? You just haven't really thought about it. That if it did, something went wrong or somebody came in and said, we're going to do it this way, you'd be like, oh, okay, we've always done it that way before, but this works too. Okay, yeah, I can handle that. That's one of those things that I think we need to think about. We need to take some time to do a little bit of a survey of ourselves to say, what things do we consider absolutely sacred? And I mean sacred as in not that they're holy, but those things that for us are so important that if it changed or someone came in and said you can't do that anymore, it would be devastating to our faith. It would actually have us wondering if we would ever go back. Now, yes, of course, we should never say that something or some place is so sacred that if it was taken away from us or changed, that we would never go back to it because it would shake our faith. I would hope we wouldn't be there. But realistically, we are a people of place. We are people that have context. We worship in a place. We sit in a pew. We have a perspective. When we were going to church when I was a kid, my mom always sat sort of second or third pew from the right facing the altar. So on the lectern side in the Anglican church traditionally. And wherever we went, we'd sort of sit there. That was the perspective from which she chose to worship, and we sort of followed along with that. But what would happen if that changed? Would we be able to continue to worship God? What things do we need to stay the same so that we can stay the same? Which brings us to another question is God calling us to stay the same? Are those things that we consider to be sacred or sacrosanct, are those things that really need to be, or are they because they make us feel comfortable? I remember, back in the day before I started dating Rob, I'd never dated anyone. I was in my early 30s. And as much as I bemoaned that, it was lonely not having someone to have a +1 for gatherings or to go to see a new movie or to talk with on the phone or to just hang out with on a weekend. I was quite comfortable in my life. I had my television programs that I like to record and watch. I had my Saturday routine, my Sunday evening, watching my program on TV with a bowl of popcorn curled up on the couch, all stretched out the way I like to do it. And as much as I, would say, yeah, I want to have someone in my life, there was a big part of me that was wed to the whole single lady thing. I liked my routine, my rhythm, having my space the way I wanted it to be. And then Rob came into my life and everything changed. And it was good. Most of it. Sometimes there were things that were like, oh, I wish it was the way it used to be. But then at the same time, the way it is now is better than that, so I can give up the way it used to be so that I can embrace this new way of being. And I realized that time in my life was good. And this time in my life is good. Some things are better in either side. I wouldn't choose one over the other. I'm glad I got to have both. But that's the thing about growing in our faith and trusting that God is leading us to a next good thing, a next maybe even better thing that we couldn't have if we hadn't had what we did already have. That if our past wasn't what it was, it wouldn't lead to the future that we will have, if that makes sense. So I just thinking about that idea that taking a survey, taking sort of a questionnaire about how do we feel about certain things, and in doing so, does that help us to recognize which things are important to us because they're just comfortable, which things are important to us because we feel like all of everything we believe in is solidly founded on that, and if you took it away, then our foundation would crumble. Which things are we willing to realize that this was a learning place, a launching off place, that we had to be here so we can go to the next place. The church is facing a new time. I'm reading a fantastic book by Phyllis Tickle about the emerging church, and that this has been going on for well over 100 years. And every 500 years or so, there's a shift, there's a change. We happen to be living in one right now. So where is the church going? Whenever we hear things about the church is going to die before 2040, do we hunker down and weep and wail and build a bomb shelter, or do we stand up and say, wait a minute, the churches are not the building. The small C church is the building, but the work we do as capital C church, the faith building, the relationship with God, all those things, they're only housed within the building. If you're telling me that the buildings that we, the way that we currently worship is going to be done by 2040, that doesn't mean worship is done by 2040. It just means maybe it'll look different. Maybe it'll be in a different place. Maybe it'll be with different people. But it's up to us to figure out how to do that. We can just accept the truth, or the fact that they say, well, the pundits are saying the church is dying in the next 20 years. We can say, okay, and we can die with it. Or we can say, let's take that survey and let's figure out what's in the past and what can be let to be in the past. What do we find important today, and what do we need for tomorrow? So I invite you today to take some time to do your own personal survey. What kinds of things about your faith life are important to you and that you want to carry forward with you? And which things could you let go? Are there things about the church, your church life, that if you still hold on to them, that you could say, you know what, if that disappeared, that would actually be okay. I could survive. And which things do you think you need to hang on to? Because even as the church will change, because it does, as it has for 2,000 years, we can determine which things we're going to hold on to and how we're going to make them work then. So take a survey, take an internal survey, and figure out what you need to let go, what you need to hold on to, what you need to reach out for in the future. And give that some thought, and then bring that back with you to church at home, or to your church, or to your community, or whatever your group looks like, so that together we can figure out what the church will look like in 2040, because the church won't be dead. It'll be different, but it won't be dead. It will be thriving, just in new ways. Have a great day. God bless you, and make sure you do some soul searching with your internal survey. I'll see you tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael on Wednesday.